How you doing, everyone? This is Matthias Atva from Direct Dreadnought, your Dreadnought PS4 replay guy. Well, we have a new patch out just today, and the PC and PS4 servers were just up around 3 p.m. Eastern Time, and the new patch is called the Dreadnought Summer Update Part 2. I was going to release a replay cast from Yulse today, and it's very action-packed, and I had a great time both watching it and casting it, but I think with this news we're going to push that off to Friday instead. Well, let's jump right into the patch notes, shall we? So this patch is mainly bug fixes and a couple of balance changes, which is nice because it means although Dreadnought may not have the R&D to release brand new content or new expansions to the game, at least they're continually looking at how to make the game better and how to balance ships to make the game more enjoyable and fun for all skill levels and classes and tiers. The bug fixes start out with a big problem everyone's been commenting on, especially myself, and we've been communicating with DN Space Ghost and the Gray Box Technical Support Department quite a bit about this, and it looks like they are going to revert back to the pre-summer update status of not having ambient engine noise. Engine audio corruption. Turned off engine audio to prevent this issue. We will continue to look into solutions. Currently, it's better to have no engine sounds than having to listen to the corrupted audio, and I could not agree more with this. The ambient engine noises are nice. They do add, let's say we can put a quantifiable number on it, 1% more immersion. But if every so often you have a match with just horrible audio quality, it really takes away more than it's adding. And to tell you the truth, with all the missiles, gunfire, commanders talking to you, officers talking to you, it really is a bit much, and you really don't notice a lot of the ambient engine noise during combat anyway. The only time I really noticed it is before or after the match. So I think this is a really good change, and they leave the door open for the future that maybe they will solve the problem and be able to include ambient engine noise in the future, but right now it's just creating too many problems, and it really doesn't take anything away from the game. The game is still spectacular and a lot of fun to play without the ambient engine noise. And to be fair, if we're going for any sort of realism, there is no noise or engine noise in space anyway. So it may be missed by some, but I have a feeling that no one is going to miss the corrupted audio, and I think this is a wise decision on behalf of Graybox. Next bug fix we have is Tech Tree. When researching and claiming ships, correct icon is displayed instead of a white square. I really didn't see this much, but I did see it once in a while, and apparently it's fixed. Quick Play. When using Quick Play, now displays the correct game mode you're queued for instead of any. This really didn't bother me, however, I did notice that when I used Quick Play, which actually isn't as often as maybe I should. I'm not a huge fan of the Quick Play button, but it's there, people wanted it, and it doesn't take anything away from my gameplay, so it's nice to have. But I did notice that sometimes when I was going for contracts and I only wanted on-slot matches, I'd press the Quick Play button and it said queued legendary any. But again, that's such a small, trivial thing, it doesn't affect me, but it's good that it's fixed. Another Quick Play bug fix is that now sets Quick Play to provide grounds correctly instead of defaulting to TDM when you play a Proving Grounds match. I don't really play Proving Grounds, and I believe I played 2 to 3 matches of Proving Grounds in the beginning of my Tier 1 Augusta Jupiter Arms Destroyer career, but after I got the 1 recruit bonus for career progression for playing Proving Grounds, I believe 2 to 3 times, I left the Proving Grounds and never went back. I have kind of a prejudice against bots, if you couldn't tell. I'm sure bots can boost and ruin our economy pretty well, write really creepy letters in dating sites, and can write really simpleton articles for the New York Times, But bots really can't play video games very well. They have little to no sense of strategy. They have a very rudimentary understanding of tactics and almost no timing. I have to say that bots and dreadnoughts are really good shots with artillery cruisers, and they make decent tacticals. So this is all games too, as a little aside. When I play bots or PvE in other games, it really ticks me off. It's not challenging at all for me, and I crave fighting other humans because, as it is right now in the stage of our race's development, humans are the only ones that can think tactically and critically. So I guess we'll either have to wait a couple centuries till bots get better, or maybe we can teach our dogs and cats to play video games. But I guess Proving Grounds now correctly sets in quick play instead of dumping you into Team Deathmatch. For PS4, that'd be us, Ship Detail page now opens with correct tab highlighted, and L1R1 navigates as it should. I have noticed that there was a problem with the UI if you went up past the choices in the UI or down past the choices in the hangar UI or used L1R1. Sometimes it got stuck and it didn't work correctly. Moving on with that same genre, PS4 gamma slider image in settings now displays. PS4 late join and rejoin now shows ship selection UI correctly. This is huge. This was a huge gripe of mine. Sometimes I would go into a match late, and not only would it not allow me to choose my ship, it usually just set me to the first ship in my fleet. But if I happened to die, it wouldn't let me choose ships anyway. The selection screen was missing. Sometimes I could blindly choose and get it wrong. Other times I could not choose at all. So this is a welcome change to the game, and hopefully those problems are done with permanently. PS4 main menu navigating up past top and down past bottom no longer selects inactive UI elements before wrapping to active ones. I think we mentioned this before, and this was a small bother to me, but I'm glad it's fixed because let's face it, if this happened to you, you just have to press your controller, do your up, up, down, down, left, right, BA start, and eventually you would wrap around and get back to the UI. But it was annoying, and I'm glad that it's fixed. PS4 Havoc. HUD now includes all 4 players in the player status area. I didn't notice that that wasn't showing, but I'm glad that this is fixed now. And I still have that option open to any viewers that want to get back into playing Havoc, maybe earn the Beat Level 10 medal for the PlayStation Network. If you want to do that, get a hold of me. I do play Havoc once in a while, and it can be fun in short doses. Now let's move on to the balance changes. For destroyers, and I didn't get any sort of rumors or news about this, and I think I wasn't looking for this change, but after reading it, I think it's very positive. For destroyers, they're focusing on module reboot. Now, when I first started playing destroyers, I did use module reboot so that I could up my gun power. Remember that I started as a Jupiter Arms destroyer, and if you're not playing a Jupiter Arms destroyer with a gunboat in mind, you're playing the Jupiter Arms destroyers wrong. So I like to use initially module reboots so I could send 2 flights of missiles out. It really didn't help torpedoes much because of their low cooldown, but I loved using it for weapon booster pulse. You could weapon booster pulse, do a lot of damage, power to weapons or power to shields if you're taking damage, or maneuvering around with power to engines. And then when it expired, you could use it again to fire another set of missiles, another Goliath torpedo, and to get your weapon booster pulse back and keep the damage going. So it was good, but eventually I moved more into the warp jump, and then when I got into tier 3, I used the weapon amplifier to great effect on not only the Jupiter Arms destroyers, but also the Aquila Vector Gora, and both the Jupiter Arms and Aquila tier 3 vessels. If you played very carefully and strategically and used judicial amounts of power to weapons, you could combine that with Weapon Booster Pulse and Weapon Amplifier to get extreme amounts of gun damage on ships that really aren't high enough tier to take advantage of superior mobility. And I did a lot of damage. It really broke my heart to see Aquila Vector destroyers and Jupiter Arms destroyers not firing their guns at all and trying to move in to a tier 3 Aquila Vector Dreadnought, attempting to ram them and then getting destroyed very quickly because they had used all their energy and were now point blank with a Dreadnought that had its armor booster pulse up. With the gunboat strategy, you could sit back and wait till an armor booster dissipated and then hit ships for upwards of 200 to 300% normal damage for at least 15 seconds, 10-15 seconds, and you could even take out artillery cruisers at 6 to 7 kilometers effectively that way because they were stationary and you were not if you were playing correctly. But maybe this will bring the module reboot back. Enough of my strategy aside, let's go back to the actual balance change. For Tier 0 and Tier 1, the looks like the cooldown has been reduced by 20, 40, or 50 seconds and changed to 30 seconds and 40 seconds respectively. The cooldown from 135 seconds is changed to 120 seconds, and its reduction from 60 to 50. In Tier 4, it's 160 down to 110, and the reduction is 70 to 55. And in Tier 5, the reduction from 180 is down to 100, which really makes sense, and the cooldown reduction is from 80 to 60. Now you see here most of the really good weapons in Tier 5 that have a long cooldown sit at the 55-second range. Many of the others that are less damaging but still very effective sit at the 45-second range. And if you happen to get stacked with a disruptor or anything else like that, perhaps this can overcome that. But I think the overall gist of it is that there is a slight reduction in the effectiveness of the module, and to tell you the truth, that's really not going to hurt anything because 80-second reduction in Tier 5, I don't even know of anything on a destroyer that takes 80 seconds. Some Dreadnought and tactical modules may take longer than 55 seconds, but typically 45 to 55 seconds for most destroyer modules is what a long cooldown looks like, and for other modules it's much, much less, 25 to 15 or even 12 for Torpedoes 5. So what we're looking at here is a colossal reduction in the cooldown of the module reboot itself. At Tier 5 it's 180 down to 100, and from Tier 3 to Tier 5 is a reduction of the amount of time you have to wait to get it back online, which is the trend that almost every other module sees when going from Tier 3 to Tier 5. So I think this may bring it back for missile boats and torpedo boats, because let's face it, if you're using RAM or something of that ilk, you will be using module recycler, and module reboot really doesn't help you that much. This may be extremely effective if you have flechettes and storm missiles, flechettes and missile repeaters, perhaps flash torpedoes. It really doesn't help for normal torpedoes. But what you're looking at here is for torpedo and gunboat and missile meta, which is kind of hurting compared to the RAM meta. I just had an argument with Lord Meatspin yesterday about this. I don't think that RAM is the only option out there. I think my replays prove that. I think a lot of players play different meta than just the RAM meta, and I think this may bring further options, not only making module reboot itself better, but also presenting maybe a new way for storm missiles to get back into the meta. Because let me tell you, if you walk up and double storm, double flechette somebody using module reboot, that's pretty savage. And if you don't want to get that close in and waste your energy, you can also use missile repeater flechettes, then hit module reboot, do it again. Or even do the old crazy Goliath nuke where you charge into, let's say, 3,000 meters, and as soon as you hit 28, launch a Goliath, module reboot, launch a Goliath, and when you take damage again and you have desperate measures in your officer briefing list, as soon as you hit a certain threshold of damage, you could even fire a Goliath again, and then module reboot will come back because of desperate measures and fire Goliath again. And if you time it right and you're taking damage right, you could do 4 Goliath torpedoes on a group of tactical cruisers and literally just nuke the snot out of them. So module reboot is not only getting an improvement, but other meta for destroyers may be getting an improvement through this, and definitely this might bring back desperate measures, which used to be extremely popular and is still popular today, but not as popular as it once was. Also, there is talks and rumors. I didn't think this deserved its own video, so I will mention it now. There were talks and rumors that the Scylla torpedo or Scylla torpedo was going to get yet another buff. They changed it so it had better tracking. They changed it so I believe it had slightly better damage and better cooldown. And it has a very excessive range. However, it's easy to dodge and easy to shoot down. So they were thinking of somehow, they haven't mentioned how, but they were thinking somehow of making the Scylla torpedo better. So if you have module reboot, you could fire a Scylla torpedo at long, safe ranges, module reboot, fire it again, then use long-range gunfire, especially for the Athos or even the Aquila Vector destroyers like the Gora, and then use the damage you take to use module reboot again through desperate measures, or just wait the 100 seconds, which is not all that long, to do the same combo again. You could probably fire a Scylla back to back, then fire a Scylla, and then by the time you're ready to fire your 4th one, you could fire it and then reboot module and do it again. And if you did it from far enough away from a weird enough angle, it is possible that you could have possibly 3 Scyllas hitting at once with another 2 a couple seconds later. So this does open up a lot in the meta, and I don't think this hurts balance at all. And I don't see many players actually using module reboot in Tier 4 or Tier 5, so perhaps this will bring it back. Now we're moving to artillery with rapid fire. The issue: this module has always provided little benefit to medium and heavy snipers, that would be Aquila Vector and of course Jupiter Arms, due to the largest benefit being increased fire rate in those snipers having only 1 or 2 shots per reload. Due to this, we decided to increase the reload benefit. This doesn't impact light snipers very much, as they take most of the duration to go through their ammo before a reload is even necessary. Please let us know if we took this too far, as we want it to feel like an impactful module choice, but do not want to make them overpowered. Again, we're going with this trend, and as much as we sometimes have trouble with Dreadnought and the way that it was run in the past, I love this trend of looking at modules that just aren't taken. They're overshadowed by other modules. They're really just tech tree fillers, and they're not as, and I love this word, impactful. They're not an impactful module choice. A lot of people, including myself, want to nerf certain modules like the artillery pod for tacticals, and I think that Corvettes have already been nerfed enough, but some people still want to nerf Rams and Assault Blink Warp, and I think this may be a better strategy. Instead of nerfing things to the suckiest level possible, perhaps we should introduce and inject exciting new meta changes by slowly ramping up the effectiveness of less impactful modules. So let's take a look at what rapid fire is now going to do. At Tier 2, reload speed is minus 21% changed to minus 40%. Tier 3, it's changed to 45, Tier 4, 50, and Tier 5 at 60%. And as we saw before with Reboot Module, this actually may have an unintended positive effect on officer briefings. We now see that dramatically, sometimes double, but at least a 50% increase in the reload speed, meaning that if you activate rapid fire, you can now have one solid, if not maybe two solid rapid reload sessions in between shots. And I do know that it's not explored very much, but the Aquila Vector artillery cruisers, if you add power to weapons, they do shoot and reload more rapidly. So if you take an Aquila Vector artillery cruiser and use rapid fire in the primary slot and still keep your more tankier modules, if you include officer briefings that boost your reload time if you take damage, or boost your reload time and shot speed if you're at 0 energy, you can just dump power to weapons and fire, and as soon as you hit no power, you can activate rapid fire and perhaps shoot off shots with 100% reduction in reload time, which means you're really firing one shot almost every second. And if you do this with Jupiter arms, you may be looking at firing 2 shots every second and a half if conditions are right. And this may leave you very vulnerable, but man, would you be able to crank out the damage. You could put power to weapons, crank out several very high-powered shots, and when you're out of energy, activate the artillery rapid fire. Keep power to weapons by continually swiping your thumb left to make sure your tank is completely at 0, and you're looking at some amazing firepower. We're talking with Jupiter arms, double shots every second and a half. That's pretty amazing. With Aquila Vector, less than a second reload in between shots, you could really rock the mic and put out some solid damage for short bursts. So this may have changed rapid fire to finally be a useful module, and we may see officer briefings that deal with reload speed and shot speed come into the fore once again. Now, lastly and finally, as we reported last month, we have the Corvette Scramble mines. The issue: currently the duration of scramble and cooldown of ability allows one Corvette to perma-scramble someone. This is not a fun situation for those on the receiving end, especially for new players. And might I add to that really quick, it's not very fun or challenging for the Corvette either, which is why many Corvettes stop doing this. It's really just a troll maneuver. But anyway, because of this, we have increased the cooldown of the module and decreased the amount of time you are scrambled. We took a small step this time, but could do more in the future, and I like the small incremental changes they're making. The big flag was when we got the Corvette armor amplifier. It was too much of a change. It really was. Most of the changes they make to the game are actually very well thought out. I think that one set a bad precedent, and the rupture, I'm still, the jury is still out as far as rupture, but I have to say that those two mechanics, I think, did too much in too little time. So now we're doing small incremental changes, and I think it's great, and this sets a precedence that if it's not enough, they can change it in the future, or if it causes a bug or too much of a balance problem, they can revert it back to its original stats. But anyway, let's look at the Corvette Scramble mines. Tier 3, the cooldown is 12 changed to 30. The scramble duration is 6 to 5. The duration isn't changed much, and that's good because you still want a solid 5-second scramble, and you have to get in there to land the mine. But 30, I'm going to say 30 is okay. I've been wrong before. I was wrong about the armor amp because I talked smack about it and said good things about it before I actually played it, and then Scroat walked in with Aquila Vector Corvettes and destroyed everybody with it. So, and he had desperate measures on that too. So I have been wrong in the past. I never claim to be right all the time. I only claim that I know more than the average player does when it comes to Dreadnought. And I have to say, so far this looks pretty good. In Tier 4, 10 is changed to 26. Tier 5, 8, which is pretty ridiculous if you think about it, because the scramble duration was 10 and the cooldown was 8, which means you could definitely permanently scramble someone with 2 seconds to spare. Now that's 20 seconds for the mine cooldown and 8-second duration. And to be honest, I feel like all the mines need a bit of a cooldown increase. I can pump out a lot of proximity mines if I want to. And I'm not saying that's overpowered. I'm just saying that this seems to me, at first glance, to be a positive change. And I like the trend that Gray Box is taking as far as balance. That seems to be the end of the patch notes for the Dreadnought Summer Update 2. I did play a little before. I thought the engine noises were good. Now that they're gone, I haven't had any problems with that annoying bug. But however, I was playing Akula Vector Netrons when I first got that ship. And even though there's no ambient engine noise, occasionally I would get the corrupted audio bugs for that particular ship. And I know Leonard Smoke and a couple other players say that it is there for other Corvettes as well. So we will see if the corrupted audio returns or not, but so far so good, and I don't miss the ambient engine noise at all, and I don't think many of you do either. Some interesting balance changes. I'm really excited to see people use module reboot again, and I never really used artillery rapid fire. I tend to be very defensive of my artillery cruisers, but let's see if these two balance changes bring back officer briefings that were neglected. So maybe we don't have to buff or nerf certain officer briefings. Maybe by modifying the balance of certain modules, officer briefings will come back to the fore that were no longer being used as much. And of course we had the long anticipated Corvette Scramble mine nerf, and I really don't think that's going to hurt it as much. Let's face it, if you have a disruptor pulse and you scramble someone and deliver solid damage and get out of there, you're doing great. And the meta for most Corvette players, if you've noticed, including Mooks 55, Yulce, and the legendary Scroat, they are now shifting away from parking underneath someone, being stationary and trolling them, and have since moved to a more mobile strafing strategy when flying Corvettes. And I think they initially started doing that because of the rumored changes to Corvette momentum, but now that that never materialized, I think players are finding value in not being stationary and suicidal with Corvettes. So perhaps if you can stick one scramble mine that'll give you enough time to do serious damage, finish off an opponent, almost finish off an opponent, run away, look for another opportunity, come back, finish them off. So I think overall these are positive changes and small changes, baby steps, and I like that. Changes that don't require millions of dollars, a lot of R&D for a risky proposition that the player base may dislike. These subtle changes are things players want and probably don't take much money or effort on the back end. Well, I think that about wraps it up for the Dreadnought Summer Update 2 patch notes, and even though it is delayed, you will love Yulce's player-provided replay cast, and that will be coming out Friday, so I can give you guys a couple days to watch this one and not saturate the channel with back-to-back videos. But I think you'll love it, and I was simply amazed when I watched it. It is yet another Corvette Nevis replay, but this one is much different than the others, and I think you'll admit when you watch it that Yulce has a lot of skill. Well, that's it for me for now, and I'll see you soon in Sinley Bay.